Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. This is
Thank you so much for joining me here on One-on-One once again here on Metro TV. I am Bright Nana Kwesi Aminin, and tonight my guest is an interesting one. Somebody I've interviewed before, but not on One-on-One, probably on a different program. And we get to meet again. You know, this time around talk about serious stuff concerning election 2024. Happenings. She contested on the ticket of the NDC. First time she was told she won. Now, Issy says, let's go back and do a recount. And we came back and it had been called for somebody else. Somebody with the MPP, a name with a noun opposition, New Patriotic Party. We talk about this and many more and tell you who my guest is here tonight on the program. For now, I'll be back. Now, the just held general elections, that saw His Excellency John Dramani Mahama announced as the country's president, saw a number of constituencies facing their own issues concerning who was to be declared the winner of the elections. We can mention Ablekuma North, where, as we speak, is still being contended for, between three of the MPP and the NDC. And also Tema Central, Ebi Brights, of the NDC and another of the MPP. Even somewhere in Nsawadoejui also had the same issue. We can also talk of Baba Sadiq, who is of the NDC and another of the MPP. What exactly is the issue? Tonight, I'm glad and honored to have you in the studio. Ebi Brights. You know her. If you don't know her as a politician, she's still a screen goddess. I can say that. She's an actress. She told me on the other program that it never stops. It just gets better. But for the sake of this interview, let's call her the 2024 parliamentary candidate for Tema Central, Ebi Bright. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Bright. It's always a pleasure to sit with you. And I greet all our viewers and family and friends at home, and the entire nation and the entire world. That's how far your viewership goes. So greetings from your studios to everybody watching us.
Grateful. Like I mentioned earlier, the first time we spoke on TV was on exclusive, a very relaxed lifestyle, program. But this is a bit hardcore. Not necessarily hardcore, but we get probing. I know it might not be a good question to ask you as a first. But if I should take it back to December, when the elections were held on 7th December, this is your third time running for that seat, and you've lost. How do you describe the third one, which is just ended?
I lost the first two times, but I didn't lose the third one. The most recent one was definitely not a loss. And so it was very different in many ways. We went into, the saying that elections are won at the polling station. Mm-hmm. That's very true. But they can also be stolen at the Collation center. I think that's one part of the equation that people have ignored, because if you're not able to tabulate properly, if there's been room for manipulations and you have actors that are supposed to be truthful and fair, also, colluding to do the wrong thing, and that can very quickly degenerate into something else. And that's what Tema Central has been through. I think that, because the whole country was going through the same exercise at the same time, people weren't privy to some of the details, but Ablekuma North, playing out in the full glare of media and interest of a public, has opened up the awareness of people to what exactly happens during collation. And I think that is what happened to us prior to my declaration as MP elect for Tema Central. And so, that this election was very different because there was more at stake. More at stake being that the people of Tema Central came out and voted for me, as opposed to other elections where I lost. Maybe not genuinely by the margins that were reported, because we've always had compromised elections in Tema Central. But this time, I did win. And so the battle now is to preserve this win, is to defend the mandate that these people so graciously have invested in me. And so that's what makes it different. 7th of December, we were expectant, we were jubilant, we were confident. And very quickly, as the hours wore on, we just became frustrated because it was obvious with the way that time was being wasted that something untoward was happening. And lo and behold, it was borne out 2 days later, the fact that our mandate that was so clear was diverted. Yeah.
What's really happened now? One time you are declared winner of the elections, and you wake up the next morning and you are told you are no more the winner, like you put it. I mean, at the time, what really happened and what was going through your mind at the time?
So from the 7th, it was clear that there were a lot of things being done behind the scenes. But very quickly
Sorry to cut you, but first of all, were you initially declared winner?
Yes, I was. I was declared winner on the 9th. So here it goes. We finish on the 7th. We're supposed to start collating, but we basically spent, almost 13 hours just to have a declaration of the presidential. Or we did spend a few hours collating presidential, after which they were declared. Now, logical, move on to parliamentary. And somehow they wouldn't. So people were waiting, they agitated, and somehow there were all kinds of delays. So it was obvious something funny was going on because the MPP and the EC were not prepared to sit down and collate. So it went on to, until the early hours of the morning. And then suddenly they decided that they didn't feel that the environment was safe enough for collation. So we did not have collation on the 7th. We didn't have collation on the 8th. On the 8th, sometime around midday or even later, in fact, around by 4 o'clock, when they still would not sit down to collate, they came up with something saying that, because there were a lot of disturbances. Now, supporters of both parties had crowded into the room and they were like, collect the results. We're waiting for the announcements, and this was not being done. And then suddenly there was tear gas thrown into the air to disperse the supporters who were asking that collation take place, because there was no collation at all. So
what was the excuse, or what were you told as to why collation has stalled?
Nothing really. It just wasn't happening. It's a very curious situation. This person is not there. They won't sit down to it. You could tell that the returning officer was being prevented from taking charge. Then the metro director decided that he would take charge of, of affairs. We said, no problem. Let's sit down and do it. And then suddenly they come up, with the tear gas. People disperse. All of us run away. Police, even some of the police were injured and sent to the hospital because of the tear gas, and other people. And then they come and say, well, the environment is not safe. So let us postpone the collation to Tuesday. And this was...
So the collation was postponed to Tuesday because tear gas has been fired.
Yes.
And people had, scattered, trying to find...
But we'll come back. Let's continue.
You came back at a time peace had been restored.
Yeah, tear gas is just for, a period. They say, and it was to disperse. Supporters were saying, collate. So, after that, they said, well, we don't feel safe here. The MPP can... We say, no problem. So when can we collate?
This statement of the police not being safe came from the MPP person.
Yes, and the EC. They said, well, the environment is not conducive. We would like to move collation to the regional police headquarters, and we would like to do it on Tuesday. So we said, well, that's fine. And this is Sunday. That's fine. So we were ready, and we agreed to meet on Tuesday at the regional police headquarters. So you have your pink sheets and everything, so you know what the results are going to be. You do an accounting and you figure out what you're going to, what the situation is. And then suddenly at 7 a.m. On Monday morning, we get a call, I get a WhatsApp message that we're supposed to report at the police headquarters for collation at 8 a.m. And this is at 7 a.m.
When the ballot boxes were being moved, supposedly to the police headquarters where you had to go and do the collation there, did any of your officers follow to make sure that it wasn't tampered with or anything? We weren't
informed. They're supposed to inform us when they're transporting these things, and you're supposed to have an agent, there, for transparency's sake. None of that was done because we were supposed to collate on Tuesday. So there's time between Sunday and Tuesday to move this. You're supposed to let us know when. None of this were. We later found out that boxes had been moved 3 times, three different locations without our knowledge. So, but beyond that, at 7 a.m., you send me a message and say we should come for collation at 8 a.m. It's followed by a phone call. And I said, well, how do I even get my representatives and all of that? After days of all of this, we're exhausted. And everybody was ready for Tuesday. And then now suddenly at 7 a.m., you're supposed to get your people together and report at 8 a.m. And so it's taking place at the regional police headquarters, which for us was fine. So we arrived there sometime. I negotiated. I said, we can't get there before 10 a.m., because you have to I even have to try and get office keys to get our pink sheets back and all of that. This is not something in my bedroom. So basically we arrived there. It was a Sunday, on Monday at 10 a.m. and then ready for collation. So we sat there with agents. The whole place was filled with MPP bigwigs, the regional minister, the regional chairman of the MPP, and so many people. And of course, they're in control of the police and everything. But we were okay because it's a simple collation. And then I had a couple of my NDC elders with me. I had the National Women's Organizer, who had been with us from Saturday night, and then the National Youth Organizer also joined us. And then I had my lawyer and then my 2 collation agents, and we were there. And so we start collating. And so right off the bat, we were able to show them the 16 pink sheets which had issues. And so in comparison with the MPP and then the EC, you reach a consensus. So sometimes the figures are not, don't tally, but that's the same information on everybody's pink sheets. So we try and figure out what the challenge is, and if we agree, then we move on. We make the corrections together, and then we move on. But then there were these pink sheets that were obviously, fabrications. I mean, this could not pass muster as pink sheets. There has
is it from how the sheets looked or the figures on the sheet?
There's that. The figures on the sheets did not match, which was not exclusive to those sheets. But there's no date and time or year of elections. There are no names and signatures of the officers in charge of elections. Nothing which validates this as not just a piece of paper.
By a pink sheet.
Exactly, but the pink sheets. And interestingly, the originals of the EC did not match the photocopies, the carbon copies of the MPP and us.
Why that?
Well, that's the curious thing, because the duplicates are supposed to be direct reflections of the originals. So then you can see obviously that these were prepared separately. Now the accounting is done at the polling station. So now we had cause to challenge this, and the officers in charge of those polling stations, according to the EC, Because here's the case. We don't have their names and their identity on our pink sheets.
Right.
So we can't even tell you who the officers for those polling stations were. So they could have called you, Bright, to come and give testimony, and we have no way of determining that indeed that was you. So that was the first thing. But then they called in some people who claimed to have been the presiding officers for those polling stations, and they admitted that they did not fill those pink sheets at the polling stations, but rather they filled them in the offices of the Electoral Commission, without the presence of our agents.
Exactly what I was coming. What I was coming to. So these pink sheets in question, according to the officers on the day, say they actually didn't fill it on the day, but at the center.
Yes.
But rather at the office of the EC.
Yes, because they were tired when, at close of polls, so they didn't fill pink sheets. They didn't announce results at those polling stations, and they did not paste results on, at any conspicuous location at the polling stations either. So, I mean, basically,
but
in the first place,
requirements.
well, this is what shows us that this is a valid pink sheet, and then when the numbers on them don't even tally, and then the EC's pink sheets are different from our pink sheets. I mean, dude, I could have brought some from home. I could have brought pink sheets from my house and say, admit this, and the trend of the elections were totally reversed in this particular polling stations in question. Another curious thing was there was one polling station where the EC was missing their pink sheets. Now, pink sheets are supposed to be placed in a box, and all of us affix our seals.
Yeah.
That's how it comes. They went to their office and retrieved the pink sheets from a desk.
I don't. Say that again.
We were sat right there. They didn't have copies of the pink sheets. We didn't have copies of the pink sheets. The EC says, "Don't worry." The EC director will go and look for it, and they go and retrieve it from a desk in their office. Pink sheets that are supposed to be in a locked ballot box and affixed with seals and all of that. So there were very curious situations, ongoing in Tema Central. And if we had, the opportunity to play out all this drama, you would have been shocked. So all of this led us to refuse the results of, I think there were supposed to be four polling stations. But, at every turn, you're compromising on 1, 2. We just compromised till there were 3 pink sheets that were just inadmissible. And so that is where we ended collation. We said, well, these are not valid pink sheets. The returning officer said, well, these pink sheets, I can't vouch for. But note, by the way, that he was being asked to step aside. And the process was taken over by a superior who was not assigned, to handle.
Who has not even been there.
No, and who by law is not supposed to be the one to handle collation. So he decided at the point where collation was ended that he understood that these pink sheets did not pass muster, but as far as he was concerned, they must be included in collation to give the NPP a lead, we assume,
Knowing very well that, just like you said,
yes,
that he acknowledged the fact that these pink sheets identified were not the usual.
Yes, but he
insisted
said, yes,
they are added to the other ones.
Yes, and he said that we must add all of them because that will ensure the win for the MPP. Who sits down and listens to this and rolls over and says, okay?
Did he say that will cement the win for the MPP?
Yes, he did say yes, that if we add these 3 pink sheets, the MPP candidate will win. So they must add them. I mean, and they were like, this is not going to happen today. So that was what the whole contention was about. We said, this is inadmissible. I could have brought pink sheets as well. And so take my fabricated pink sheets as well. So this is the situation in Tema Central. So based on that, everybody said, look, well, you declare the winner, as the valid results reflect. If you have challenges with these 3 pink sheets, you go to court. But these pink sheets cannot be admitted into the results.
Right.
And so as far as we're concerned, as far as the results, the valid results show, she's won. Okay, so, and then he says, no, he's not going to, if I'm the one who is winning, then he's not going to announce the results.
This were his words.
Yes, these were his words. And all of these have been captured on camera. So it was over and over and over. And they said, you must declare the results. He says he's not going to declare the results for me. That we must ensure that the win is this way. It was such a curious situation. So they got the RO to stand aside, and he took charge of that. So even the police impressed upon him. I mean, this doesn't make sense. Announce the winner. And so after much pressure, and this is all verbal, with the police and with all of us, he said, okay, he was assigning somebody else who is his contemporary in the Tema metro area.
Right.
I think the returning officer for Tema West, to announce the results. So that person announced the results and declared the winner, finally. So that's how it ended. We were expecting that this issue will go to court if they were dissatisfied, which gives all of us an opportunity to lead evidence, including them. But you know, the curious thing about this situation is that the evidence will point to forgery and fabrication by even their own admittance. And these are crimes under the law. So it's not just a simple issue of reversing the illegality of, them declaring him after me. But it's also proving that people need to answer for electoral malpractice and fraud. So these are the issues in Tema Central. So instead of going to court, they hid under a mandamus with other constituencies. And the EC came out 2 days later to say they announced elections under duress. And
your elections under duress?
Our elections under duress.
Sorry, your pronouns.
They announced the results under duress. So my pronouncements was made under duress, number one. And that there had been guns placed to their heads and people were beaten and assaulted. But dude, this is at the regional police command, where you're surrounded by all of the command of the police force, with your regional minister and all of them who were at that time in charge of security. Who assaulted you? Who put which gun to your head? You know, all these stories which they've not been able to prove. So, well, 2 days later, they come and say this story and that they're going to recollate. But then by law, there's nothing like that. Yeah. Once there's been a declaration, you go to court and lead evidence about why it's been wrongful. Wrongful is not for you to speak about subjectively. I've made a mistake at this. No. The court must decide that and validate. And these are the technicalities that we've been dealing with since then. So they went seeking for the right to, or they went to they decided that they would recollate. And so we went to court seeking to prevent them from doing that, and instead go to court, use the correct channel. And so that's been back and forth. It was ruled in their favor to go and recollate. We went to the Supreme Court, which found the ruling ridiculous. They reprimanded the judgment and then pronounced that that was null and void. So that restored my declaration. Now we were supposed to go back to court and mandate the EC to gazette our declaration and all of that. But again, a judge granted them the right to go and recollect. And another thing that they complained about was that my declaration was not made by the accredited returning officer. Now, the curious thing with this situation is that they were the ones that made him stand aside, removed him from the process because he was sticking to, the truth. Well, so the court ordered that they should go and recollate. But the accredited officer by law should take charge of the process, which was fine. Now they go and recollate without inviting us. Again, collation is not done like that. We all must be there and agree that our information...
Absolutely.
Because if we're there, there's no way that we're still going to turn a blind eye for you to admit forgeries into our results. So this is what happened yet again. They went and did the collation without us. And then we watched on TV as a different person from the accredited returning officer handled the process and did the declaration. So they have defied even the court orders, which for us were faulty to begin with. So there are many things. Now that process is ongoing. But like I said, that process is basically focused on procedure. Now we needed to file a petition. Now that he's been sworn into Parliament, I mean,
Where does that leave you?
Well, that leaves me now in the position to pursue a petition.
Right.
Because now I can't say, yeah. I mean, at some point, the Supreme Court could rule. It's possible that their declaration for them, it's possible that it will become null and void again as it has been before. In which case, I am still the MP-elect. In fact, I'm still the MP-elect because as far as we're concerned, everything that has happened after my declaration is illegal. And that's still up for the courts to make a final pronouncement on. So that is still pending. It's possible any day that that is what the ruling will be. However, without that, my substantive case still remains, which is what I've now filed since last Friday in a formal petition, which allows me to go into the meat and fabric of my case and address all the irregularities, that have attended this elections.
But interestingly, Parliament is in session. I mean, appointment committee is sitting, inauguration has been done. I mean, work of the House is underway. I mean, if or when, if I should put it rightly for you, the court says whatever declaration that was done in his name is null and void, probably let's have a re-election. Would you subscribe to that?
Why not? The people of Tema Central are determined that their mandate will not be stolen. They're passionate about this, and it's also for their sake that I cannot afford to give up on this. So we'll keep fighting with them. And if the fight demands that they must come out and vote again, for their sakes, for mine, for the sake of our democracy, and for the fact that we must expunge thievery as much as possible, fabrication and all of that from the fabric of our democracy, I think that every Ghanaian in Tema Central and everyone concerned will make a commitment and the sacrifice to do it all over again. And I have no choice but to do that. Tema Central for me has never been an easy ride. It was never going to be easy. We haven't anticipated how difficult it's been, but my commitment has been firm. So I wouldn't have been doing this, fighting for this for 10 years, and still fighting. So when it doesn't matter what the ruling is, what we will not accept is that our matter is not looked into, determined on its merits, and that we do not have justice. That is what is not possible. But as far as extra work, extra commitment, extra sacrifice is concerned, I think that I'm ready, and I dare say that there's been enough indication from Tema Central that they would be ready. So we are, whatever the courts decide.
Right, so I'm still here with a member of the NDC and the one who was first, announced by the EC as the winner of the Tema Central Parliamentary seat. And later, an MPP candidate was declared. Like she just said, court gave an order. Court took it back. Court gave an order, and he has been sworn in as PC of Tema Central. But she's back in court with an appeal. We'll talk more about that after this break. Don't go anywhere. Stay with me here on 101. I'll be back. we are back, but as we speak, Charles Forson is representing the people of Tema Central on a ticket of the MPP, even though Evie Bright was earlier announced on a ticket of the NDC elections. Evie, quite an interesting story.
It is.
But you are back in court with an
Yes.
appeal.
Yes, yeah.
Am I right?
Yes, so we're at the Supreme Court. Interestingly, that has been it's been deferred indefinitely because they've been evading service. So, I mean, what do we call it when, I mean, the court case? Sorry, I missed the words right now. Yes, but, you know, it's indefinite right now until we're able to serve them. And so they've been evading service for over a month. I mean, they refuse to, accept the case. But we've been able to secure an order for substituted service, which allows us to serve them by public means. So they're not required to hold a piece of paper from the bailiff. And it was very interesting the way the whole system conspires to subvert, justice. Because we've had trouble even with the officers that are assigned to serve, where you can tell that they're working for the person to make sure that they don't, it's been so terrible. Corruption for us is usually confined to big power. But, Ghanaians with little power or opportunity are engaging in corruption. And it's sad because most of us at the bottom or even the middle of the social ladder should be concerned. When the wheels of justice are able to be, derailed to that extent by anybody at any level, because it will affect us more, those of us without power. So when people like us from our level are engaging in this sort of corruption that robs people of justice, I think that we should be more concerned about ourselves.
Exactly.
Because it's the same thing that will be meted out to you. So, but it's provided a very wide perspective, a wider perspective for me. And as human beings, many of the things that don't affect you personally don't really engage your conscience. And so I've learned over time to be appreciative of every circumstance. Tema Central has been tough. It's been difficult. What we're going through is not easy. But it's also being a test of my resolve. It's also being a test of the commitment and the validity of the mandate that people have given me in Tema Central, that they're unwilling to accept this. But it's also being a source of strength and enlightenment for me to see the ways that we can be more empathetic and support people going through all kinds of struggle, whether in justice delivery or just support through carrying their advocacy and their cases along. So I'm learning through this process, and I'm trying to be patient with leading my followers and supporters and growing into an even more responsible politician. But beyond all of that, I'm grateful for the opportunity. However, it needs to be clear that I'm not going to roll over. I'm not sitting down on this. I will give it all because that's what it deserves. The case that we filed now is to give us an opportunity to go into the issues. However it goes, people deserve to have enlightenment in this process. And the courts need to be able to exercise their power and their duty, their responsibility to provide protection and justice for us.
I mean, you are more lean towards the fact that justice has to prevail.
Yeah.
But, in our local parlance, we have times we say, Fama Nyame. I mean, for peace to reign.
Yeah.
Are you also looking at it from that angle?
Oh, absolutely. You see, I don't think that there's one way to understand something. There are many avenues that God has provided us with. Fama Nyame, when you're ill, means go to the hospital and trust in God who has given people wisdom and opportunity to study and medicine available for them to treat your malady. Fama Nyame in this case is also to go through all the prescribed measures by law and to have faith in the God that has set out laws and a structure for society for us. Fama Nyame is to take the mandate of a people truly and place it in the hands of the set out systems so that it can be interpreted rightly. Fama Nyame doesn't mean giving up to evil or injustice or lies. Fama Nyame means standing up for the truth. That is my interpretation of it. So Fama Nyame is not a rollover. Fama Nyame means subscribe to that highest power of truth and authority. And so within the scope of what we know, and within the scope of our answered prayers and the benevolence and the grace of God to take control of things that you and I have no idea of, that is how I Fama Nyame. So this is squarely in the hands of God. And beyond this also, I'd like to tell you that I'm not operating only on the limitations of the difficulties that I'm experiencing as a person, but with the firm belief that what this mission that I'm on is ordained. It is something that I must do in service because of love for God and God's love for us. So I find myself in a very blessed position to where I feel I'm fighting in God's army. You know what I mean? So that is how I Fama Nyame. So I subscribe to Fama Nyame.
But in a very interesting way.
Well, no, in a broader sense that I'm hoping people will avert their minds to.
Here in Ghana, Fama Nyame is just let it go. For my understanding of Fama
We've
Nyame,
not done ourselves any justice, and we've not done Nyame any justice. Because God is a God of truth. When you say Fama Nyame and your interpretation of Fama Nyame is turning away from the truth and giving into evil, you're not being a soldier in God's army. So you see, we're all enlightened along the way. And I'm glad that also these situations like this have enlightened me into even Fama Nyame and other concepts.
right?
So yeah, I don't think that we should sit down with that interpretation necessarily. That's a beautiful thing about culture. It evolves. It enriches, it expands our scope. And culture is our traditions, but it's also something we build up on. Look at us today. You have heritage and you have history, but we're writing a new chapter of it every day. And if this results in a new movement of Fama Nyame that says be active and proactive about the future we're going to bequeath to Ghana and Africa and our environment, I'm all for it. Because we can't sit like this all the time. Are we going to do Fama Nyame with dealing with Obroni? Then Africa is enslaved forever. Fama Nyame in accepting that we're poor and we can't think beyond our circumstances, we're doomed forever. Fama Nyame that justice will not be served to helpless poor people, people without power, or even people with power but who are not willing to abuse it, then we're doomed forever. So I will put it in the capable hands of God, who is in control of all that is, and say, we're winning this because you're the Nyame.
Right, I'm still here with Evie Bright. We are talking everything, elections, everything Tema Central, and her next move as Fama Nyame, hoping that, it goes as she's praying for. Anyways, away from that, a quick one. Let's talk about the NDC administration.
Yeah.
Interestingly, a number of women are being appointed.
Yeah.
A number of young people, very young people.
Yeah.
Look at the Ashanti Regional Minister.
Yeah.
Quite young.
That's cool.
Look at Malik Basinteli.
Oh, yeah.
Very young. Even I can speak of Shema Muslim, who has been
Shamima.
taken to the presidency as a presidential staffer.
Beatrice Annan. That's
so many people. And all that.
My Leonard Council. So many people. And it's refreshing. And kudos to my president and vice president and all our leaders, but also kudos to young people because we've distinguished ourselves. Otherwise, I say we because I'm still in the bracket of young people. They're my comrades, my compatriots.
You are still young.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. But really, kudos to them as well because you see all of these people have emerged into these positions on merit. And with the kind of situation that we're in now in Ghana, for President Mahama to be able to bet these 4 years on their abilities, it says a lot. And so I respect him for being that forward. Because down here in this environment, people want to be too safe. They're not going to do the daring that will actually change. But, our situation where we are right now is so desperate that you need to amp it up. We need the energy, not just the wisdom, quiet wisdom, but you need the energy. And this also frees up our older cadre to sit down and watch and direct and advise and support. You see? So this, for me, this is a very culturally awake way to deal with the nation moving forward. And so I'm very glad about it.
I mean,
but then I dare say, in terms of women, we have quite a few, but not yet quite as much.
But won't you say this is an improvement?
No, it is an improvement. So we're pushing for more, but then you also have to understand that, it's also based on our level of activity up until this point.
Right.
So at the risk of then taking square or rectangular pegs into round holes, I think that we've done marvelously well. But the way that the space is now is very encouraging. So I'm looking forward to more women, coming into the space and pushing, because we're leading industry in many areas. In the banking sector, in academia, we're all over women. In business, in accounting, in, professional fields. These days, I think that women are giving men a run for their money in medicine, and every field. So why not in politics? And so some of us have a responsibility to blunten the rough edges around our political space so that it's more welcoming for our agenda.
How would you describe the appointment committee and the works being done so far by them, and even those who are being vetted?
Well, we've always looked at Parliament as an honorable house, and that's why many of us have felt that was like a whole...
The height of it.
Yeah, to lend your mind to nation building. I dare say that some of the antics, are a bit disappointing and they're painful to watch. We're hoping that...
Is there a particular one that actually struck you during the sit-ins?
Yeah.
Probably want to talk about the one that actually involved, them raising tables and chairs and...
this most recent one is just... It's, a bit shameful. But then so was the time when people were trading blows and chewing paper and, and all of that, running away with ballots. I think that we must be careful not to expose the way in which these things are a reflection on society. I don't even know.
Would you have preferred the media having captured that on TV?
No, I wouldn't have, because then it doesn't make us aware that there's something to be addressed. The whole idea of this not so desirable aspects of who we are being played out in the dark is offensive to the future. Because it's important that we're able to put all of these in context. Because you see, action and reaction, they say, are equal and opposite. Most times we only get to see the reactions and we can't understand what was brewing under. Now we're with them and we'll understand why tomorrow morning there's something that we don't understand. Here's what it is. I think that the involvement of the media in these hitherto obscure issues, in our social space are very important. Just like our elections. A lot of in the heat of the moment, you're not thinking, who's thinking of filming, a boring, ordinarily boring process as a collation. Except that the media were interested, they're there. And because of them, we have a lot of the evidence, of some of the things to prove or disprove. They're there as the truth. And so it's important. Look at what happened last night in, I say last night or whenever, this other night in Parliament with the overturning of tables and all of that. And, imagine if we don't really get to see it. It could become any story. And especially kudos to the MPP. They know how to weave tales. I mean, I've suffered that, and we've seen it play out. I mean, the NDC is not very good at that. But it's important that when you're dealing with adversaries that are tale weavers, the truth is always there to prove.
A number of people have, a number of the NDC sympathizers have also not been so impressed with the chairman's approach to the issues on the bench, as the Honorable Hiafo. Some of the reactions on social media are quite wild. And the question is, what can be done about it? NDC or majority as a caucus?
Well, I have no idea. I dare say that this is way above my pay grade. I'm still fighting to get into Parliament.
To the House, right.
But, there are personality differences. I think that usually when these decisions are taken, we want to make a forecast or troubleshoot the issues we might be dealing with. We probably need to take a good look at the whole architecture of Parliament, the players within it, and the established behavior of those we assume will cause trouble. You should be able to anticipate these things and make your decisions based on that. Decisions have been made that, in I think our collective opinion now, don't reflect a consideration or enough troubleshooting for what could, and that's why we're being surprised in this manner. But I dare say that we're keeping to what is essential. If you've noticed, we've been able to vet and approve a record number of ministers. It's never happened like this before. And I think if we focus on the essential, which is getting government business, to run and be over quickly, it might be more comforting for us. Let's look at the output as opposed to process. I dare say, though, that vetting has always been a difficult, period. And when you look at what's the micro mini, they don't like to be called let's exactly. Kindly stick to the minority tag. But I'm not here for their pleasure. That's the truth of the situation, whether it pleases them or not.
But the tag is minority.
Yes.
So let's just try to stick to that.
The name is minority, but we can exercise artistic freedom.
Which they're not happy about anyways.
That is their problem. That is their problem. Is the NDC happy about being tagged as weak right now? Who are we beating up about it? There are mini minorities. Nothing like this that has happened. They have to endure it. Our government, without fact, was tagged as incompetent for many years. What happened with that? They have to endure the tag of corruption. Very well end. It's not my fault. I didn't make it on them. They proved it themselves. And they are indeed a mini minority. But here's the point. That kind of pain will manifest itself in a certain way, a certain manner. That's what is playing out. It might not play out like that if it were the NDC, because our temperament and our disposition is not very contrary as a people. But they are. No matter the circumstances, they're very contrary and affronting and all of that. And so I'm not too surprised by the way that they're handling themselves. We should expect that they do like that. What it is that the NDC has, a decision to make about what is important. A battle of egos and, all of that, or getting the work done. And I think in terms of getting the work done, we're miles apart, because President Mahama is getting what he needs to move at a rocket pace. Things are running already, and that is what is important. He's prioritized who he needed to get out the door very quickly, finance, energy, all of that. And so those issues are under control. The rest are rolling through. In spite of all the drama and shenanigans, we've still outdoored a record number of ministers. It doesn't matter the journey to that place, except something which I'm very glad about, that there's going to be discipline for those who are behaving in unsavory manners, to put it mildly. So once that is being done, any kind of drama can go. We are focused on delivering, and I'll say kudos to everybody in this.
I asked Fred Agbonyode's question.
Yeah.
Fred is the Member of Parliament for Guan.
Yes.
Known as SAR.
Yes.
You was here.
Yeah.
First interview done on 1-1 this year, so you're my second.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And he's a darling.
I asked him if he had the opportunity to say, I want to be appointed to this ministry,
Yeah.
or to be CEO of this company, which will he go for? And he gave me his answer.
What did he say?
Until I hear yours.
Oh, I consider myself a utility player. The only thing that's constant for me are my commitments. I've made a commitment to Tema Central. And so I'm determined to be the MP for Tema Central. That is constant. But I also have made a commitment to the NDC and to His Excellency John Mahama and his administration.
Right.
And to the people of Ghana. You see, the thing about governance is the guy sits at the top, has the whole architecture before him. And he needs to place people where it's convenient and where they can deliver. If you see the appointments that have gone forth already, people are not necessarily put in their strictest comfort zones, but they're also giving challenges that, they're expected to excel at. So for me, I'm very open. Like I said, the only thing that I don't compromise on is the original commitment I've made to Tema, and then the commitment to serve Ghana, through the vehicle of the NDC. Those are constant for me. The rest are beyond my control.
Right.
But I know that I have the capacity to learn very quickly. However, what already I have expertise in, because you continue to build, and even what I'm not an expert at, and I also have the humility to seek for added knowledge and to reach out to people who arguably, can impart to me what is required to fulfill any designation. So for me, I haven't really dreamt about anything, except this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And whatever bid that has been done, whether to have you go to Parliament or probably even to say, hey, let it go, but fill in this position, we say good luck.
Thank you, but nobody's going to say let it go. Filling this position, that's fine. It's a position. But Tema Central is a commitment, and people don't come and stand out and vote for you and say let it go.
You fight for it.
They're not asking me to let it go.
Right.
If they did ask me to let it go, I would.
You
but
would.
the moment they voted overwhelmingly for me, let it go was never an option.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Evie Bright has been my guest. It's always a pleasure to sit with her for a conversation. Probably sometime later I'll be over coffee, because I love coffee. Until some other time, this has been one-on-one here. I am Bright, Nana Kwesi. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night. Goodbye.